now and in the future. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Members in the chamber, please be aware that we are all on camera, and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking. And please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. Please remember to keep your microphones muted when you're not speaking. Before I move on to the agenda, I'm sure members would wish to express our concern, our support and our prayers to the people of the Ukraine. And as this is the final council meeting planned for this council term, I would like to offer this council's thanks to all members and staff who have served and those who will continue to serve the residents of Torfaen. Thank you all. Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1 is attendance. Democratic Services will be making a note of members' attendance in the meeting, but should you lose connection, could you possibly leave a comment in the chat bar on your return to ensure that this is picked up? Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Dominique, do we have any apologies, please?
Thanks, Chair. I've had apologies from Councillors Ron Burnett and Mike Jeremiah.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Stella Harris, Monitoring Officer and Assistant Chief Legal Officer, have you any advice for members, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. If I can firstly start with the agenda item number 9, which relates to the budget report. I'll read out those interests to be declared, which relate to being members of community councils and the fire service. My advice to members with regard to any other interests is that if you enter into a debate or ask a question about a specific matter on that item, then you can consider making a declaration at that time. So if I can first of all start off with Councillor Stephen Evans. He wishes to declare that he is a member of the HR and Equalities Committee and Chair of the Finance Audit and Performance Management Committee of the South Wales Fire and Rescue Authority Service. Can I ask Councillor Evans to confirm that?
Yes, I do. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Sue Malson wishes to declare that she's a member of the South Wales Fire and Rescue Authority. Can I ask Councillor Malson to confirm?
Yes.
Thank you. And the following councillors are members of Crossy-Keylog and Llanarvan Community Council. Councillor Richard Clark.
Confirm.
Councillor Veronica Crick.
Confirm.
And Councillor Joanne Gordon.
Confirm.
Councillor Robert Kemp is a member of Cwmbran Community Council.
Correct, thank you.
And the following are members of Pontypool Community Council. Councillor Giles Davis.
Yes, that's correct.
Councillor Gaynor James.
Correct.
Councillor Norma Parish.
That's correct.
Councillor Keith James.
Yes, that's correct.
And Councillor Linda Clarkson.
Yes, confirmed.
Can I just ask, before I move on, if there are any members who wish to declare that they are members of any other community council, any of those community councils? I haven't been informed, I just wanted to double check.
I can see a couple of hands up. Nicholas Jones.
Can I confirm I'm a member of the Pontypool Community Council, please?
John Killock.
I'm a member of Pontypool Community Council and I'm also on the Police and Crime Commissioner panel.
Councillor Stuart Ashley.
I can confirm I'm a member of Cwmbran Community Council.
Peter Jones.
I'm a member of Hentless Community Council.
Councillor Faye Jones.
I'm a member of Cwmbran Community Council.
Chris, there is some hand up in the chamber.
No hands up in the chamber.
Oh, okay.
Chair, but Councillor Overton has his hand up as well.
Councillor Overton.
Yes, I'd like to confirm that I am a member of Pontypool Community Council.
Thank you very much, members. Gareth, are you happy with that?
Councillor Gwyn Jenkins as well.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Gwyn Jenkins.
Yeah, I'm a member of the Police and Crime Commission.
Thank you, Presiding Member. If I can move on then. With regard to the pay policy statement, which is on agenda item 13, the following members have a personal and prejudicial interest and will leave the meeting when this item is being discussed, as they have close personal associates working for the authority. Now, I've been informed that the following members have, therefore, prejudicial interest. Councillor Giles Davis, can I ask the members to confirm?
Yeah, confirm.
Councillor Stewart Evans.
I confirm.
Councillor Joanne Gordon.
Confirm.
Councillor Janet Jones.
Confirm.
Councillor Sue Malston.
Confirmed.
Councillor Rose Seaborn.
Confirmed.
Councillor Alan Slade.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. There will be some other prejudicial interests in relation to the exempt item, but I will deal with those interests at that particular time.
Delyth, I have Councillor Jason O'Connell and Councillor John Killick.
Yes, Delyth, if I could just add my name to that list of interests. I have a relative who's a member of the authority. Thank you.
Councillor John Killick.
I also have a relative who works for the authority.
And Councillor Cathy Evans.
Yeah, I have close personal friends who work for the authority.
Thank you, members. Also, with regard to the pay policy statement, all officers are advised to leave the meeting when this item is being discussed. But can I ask Council to agree that Jason Lewis, the Head of Strategic HR, who will be presenting the report, and the Democratic Services officers, namely Dominique Redman, Chris Slade and Niall Flack, who are taking the minutes and assisting with the operation of the meeting, are given permission to remain. So if I can just ask Council to confirm that.
Can we have a show of hands, please? All confirm. Anybody against? Any abstentions? You have that confirmed and agreed. Thank you, Delyth.
Thank you, Presiding Member.
Did we miss any members out there? And I did notice a few legacy hands there, but I think they're all covered now. Okay. Thank you. That takes us to agenda item 4, which is the confirmation of the council minutes on the 25th of the 1st, 2022, starting on page 5. Members, could you possibly state whether you have had anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. I'll take those as approved. Thank you very much. Agenda item 5, update on action. Members, the updates on what has been done to implement our previous decisions start on page 37 of the agenda. Could you possibly indicate whether you have any questions, comments? I don't see any hands. Thank you. Members, do you agree to note the actions? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? They noted. Thank you, members. Agenda item 6, receipt of petitions. We have no petitions today, so moving on to agenda item 7, public question time. There are no public questions, so we will move on to agenda item number 8. Announcements from the Leader and the Chief Executive. Leader, do you have any announcements, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'd just like to first of all join Rose in giving our support and solidarity to the people of Ukraine at a very difficult time for them following the awful invasion of their country. I met yesterday with Welsh Government alongside leaders from councils across Wales. We stand ready to help in any way we can, as indeed we have done with other crises such as those in Syria and Afghanistan recently. I'd just like to say a big thank you to everyone in Torfaen who's been so generous donating since the crisis came about, and to direct people to charities like the Red Cross and UNICEF who are urging that people make cash donations if they can. But thank you for all of the efforts locally. As a show of our support as a council, I agreed to light up the Civic Centre in yellow and blue each evening this week, just as a sort of show of our support and our solidarity in such a difficult time. Secondly, I just wanted to thank all the staff for going above and beyond during the storms of last weekend. The way that they responded to those storms and helped clear up was exemplary. And I'd like to thank residents as well for their patience in the knock-on impact on services thanks to those storms. Hopefully those will be the last storms of this spring, and we can look forward to a long, sunny summer without too many more storms. I'd just like to give members an update on the COVID situation. Thankfully, our rates are now down to 153.3 cases per 100,000 over 7 days, and our positivity rate is down below 20% for the first time in a while. Added to that, the figures of patients in hospital and ICU in Gwent and across Wales are also down. I would remind people that the virus hasn't gone away, and I'd like to thank the TTP team, public health teams and officers involved in the vaccination coordination, alongside an Arran Bevan Health Board and a Torvine Leisure Trust for their tremendous efforts which are ongoing. I would like to congratulate our Play Service for their award. They won a National Playwork Award this week for their work during the pandemic, for their work in childcare hubs for key workers and vulnerable children, for their work delivering play packs to families during lockdown, for their work helping create resources for homeschooling, for their work helping with other services including refuse and recycling and delivery of free school meals during the initial lockdown, and for helping with play and wellbeing camps. That comes on top of the work that we all know they do outside of the pandemic. We're really proud of the unique service they provide and the way that they do it, which is inspirational. They're recognised by the Children's Commissioner as a model of good practice, and they're the envy of so many other areas across Wales. So I'd just like to say thank you to all the staff and volunteers involved. They really do make a huge difference for the lives of so many young people. And lastly, I'd just like to echo the words of Rose on the last full council meeting of this term. I'd like to say a special thank you to any retiring members for their service for our council. It's been a most extraordinary term, really, and we've not been able to perhaps say goodbye to people in the way that we would otherwise, but I'd like to thank all members for their hard work at a difficult time and for adapting how we work to adjust to the situation of the pandemic. I know, for example, how complicated it is to chair hybrid meetings, so I'd like to give a special thanks to our presiding member, her deputy, and all the committee chairs who have done that as part of this pandemic. Thank you for your work, both in this chamber and in our communities.
Thank you, Leader. Chief Executive, do you have any announcements to make, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Just one on top of the points that the Leader has made, which I, of course, fully support all of those points. Some quite exciting news, actually, around the current registration statistics for 16 to 18-year-olds as it stands. Around 2,142 have registered from an estimated population of just over 5,000. So about 42% of 16 to 18-year-olds are registered in the county. Quite exciting news. This is up from around 30% who registered for the Senate election. So real progress being made here. And of course, hope a lot of those people come out to vote, but I think it's just an exceptional effort on the part of the team and a real credit to our younger people who are showing real interest in the county's democracy. So thank you very much to them all, and that would be my only announcement today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I'm sure that's really excellent news for all listening today, so well done. That takes us to agenda item 9, which is the budget. Medium-term financial plan, page 39. Councillor Kelly Preston, the Executive Member for Resources. Could you introduce your report, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. I said at last year's Budget Council that I didn't think any of us, when we set the budget the previous year, could have envisaged the year that lay ahead, and that has again been the case since March 21. The pandemic has certainly brought many challenges again over the past year, but thankfully I hope we are starting to see recovery beginning to take shape. Members will recall at the start of this budget setting process that we were initially looking to address a gap of 1.5 million. However, following a very positive settlement from Welsh Government of 9.3%, a settlement that far exceeded what I was expecting, alongside a number of mitigations that have no effect on service delivery, we now find ourselves looking at a positive position of 7.8 million. It's really good to be talking about the significantly improved settlement and a positive budget. For me, this clearly shows that Welsh Government recognises and values the frontline role that local authorities have played during the pandemic and will continue to play as we recover. The benefit of different levels of governments coming together and working in partnership has ensured that we have the financial support we have received, has provided the certainty we needed as we have navigated these last couple of years. The proposals contained within the report today to utilise that resource give us an opportunity to invest in key areas which are vitally important to our residents, like education and social care, and to look at the longer term to help address the impact of the pandemic on our residents and communities. The proposals include a further £1.1 million towards COVID recovery and hardship, delivery of the real living wage for care workers, funding of the continuation of the approved council tax reduction scheme, a funding uplift to schools, additional money for social care providers, additional money for workforce transformation and to re-establish a new service area focused on communities, mitigations that see no service cuts, the continuation of the school leaver employment scheme and an additional capital investment of £1 million for highways. It is also proposed that we reduce the council tax increase that was initially modelled in the MTFP down from 3.95% to 1.95% for both this and the next financial year. This equates to around 50 pence a week on a Bandy property. From the MTFP members and forward settlement indication, members will see that things will be tighter in the years ahead, so this proposal will ensure, particularly in the light of the rise of cost of living, that council tax is kept as low as possible for 2 years, providing some financial certainty for our residents. I want to point out here, as I do every year, that if anyone is struggling to pay their council tax, there is help available. Please reach out to the Council's Revenues and Benefits section, as you may be entitled to support via the Council Tax Reduction Scheme. It was also really helpful this year to be able to take these budget proposals to January's all-member scrutiny meeting for members to be able to consider the proposals that we have in front of us today, giving us the opportunity to consider any feedback before bringing them to the full Council. I want to place on record my thanks to members right across the Chamber for their input and for their support. You will see that the recommendation made on the proposal during that meeting to include scrutiny in the establishment of the criteria for the COVID Recovery and Hardship Fund has been fully accepted, and I think it is a great way forward. I also want to thank all our chief officers and staff for their continued work over the last year. The commitment of our officers and staff who have provided vital services and support to local people and businesses is really appreciated. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Nigel. I think this is your 16th budget as Treasurer. Dave and all our finance officers, I don't think we can take for granted how their calm and prudent approach to the challenges we have faced has really assisted us in ensuring that we can do the best for our residents. I'll just finish by saying that this is a really positive budget and gives us the opportunity to look at the longer term as we recover through the pandemic. So I'm really pleased to be able to commend this budget to Council today, and we'll hand over to Nigel now to take members through the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Preston. Councillor Nigel O'Reilly, Assistant Chief Executive, Resources.
Please, presiding member, don't put councillor before my...
Frightened you to death, did I?
Before my name. Thank you, presiding member. The backdrop to this budget, as Kelly has said, it is my 16th. It doesn't feel that I've done that many. Still feels very different in many ways. Much of the usual preparation, estimates, mitigations and scrutiny took place within the pandemic, with restrictions still in place. As it concludes, things seem to be returning to a much more normal state, but that will no doubt bring challenges going forward as we move from pandemic to recovery. The funding position also dramatically shifted as the budget process unfolded, with a significant funding uplift, the scale of which was not anticipated. There are caveats and assumptions to be addressed and met, but whichever way you look at it, this was an excellent settlement from the Welsh Government. As the budget was concluding, I reflected on the fact that I've been Treasurer through the financial crisis of 2008, the years of austerity that followed, and now through a pandemic. And I think by far the strangest to navigate has been the pandemic. There is no doubt in my mind that in Wales, the local government as a sector has been supported by the Welsh Government significantly. Our 2020-21 position was healthy. I expect that to be the same when we close down for 2021-22. And we have a very positive settlement for 22-23. Yes, there are many challenges ahead, and although the forward outlook on funding is not so good, we can move forward with a more positive outlook than perhaps we thought back in March or April 2020 when the pandemic started. Turning now to the budget for 22-23, clearly any budget and medium-term financial plan contains a range of assumptions that are often difficult to make. The pandemic and recovery have made that a little more difficult. And also, once again this year, we've had the impact upon the timing of decisions and announcements at the national level. The Welsh Government's final budget was on Tuesday, as was confirmation of our final settlement. Hence why this Council is on a Thursday, so that we can adjust, if necessary, to any last-minute changes. There were none that fundamentally altered the proposals within the budget before you. Indeed, the change was less than £3,000. I'm going to briefly introduce the budget, its construct and conclusion, together with some commentary as your Finance Director on our overall financial standing and financial prospects going forward. The Executive Member has outlined the political and policy focus of the budget. Your Council papers start on page 39, and there you have the overall covering report on the budget, which includes the statutory recommendations. You've then got a budget book report as Appendix 1, that has 4 annexes, 1 being the budget mitigations, 2, the budget trail between years from 21-22 to 22-23, 3, the detailed budget, and then 4 being the updated medium-term financial plan. You then have 6 more appendices, which take you through the property bandings, council tax by band, equality impact assessment summary, environment policy, capital strategy and prudential indicators, and the revised asset management strategy. The budget papers do seem to become more voluminous every year, and there's certainly a lot more than when I did Budget 1. I'll come back to the covering report and the formal recommendations, but I'm going to briefly go through the budget book report and the annexes, which start on page 51. Section 3 of that report once again takes members through the story of the budget. As Kelly said, at the initial estimate stage, we had a shortfall of circa 1.5 million, for which we identified mitigations. The budget was built upon a steady state in terms of COVID. This section then also outlines the provisional settlement, a like-for-like increase for Torvine of 9.3%, just below the Welsh average of 9.4%. This is a significant uplift, which, as we've already said, wasn't expected to that level, and the financial support from the Welsh Government to local government is welcome. However, there was some narrative that accompanied the settlement that indicated that we would have to fund future pay settlements, irrespective of the level, fund the real living wage in the care sector, and importantly, there will be no hardship fund in 22-23. During the pandemic, the hardship fund has provided significant resource, and whilst we are hopefully emerging into recovery, we need to be mindful of this in our budget decisions. For the first time in several years, the settlement also outlined forward indications of funding at an all-Wales level of 3.5% in 23-24 and 2.4% in 24-25. Whilst we accept these are only indications, they are nevertheless extremely helpful in overall planning terms. The forward indications also point perhaps to a return to more challenging times going forward. The settlement did result in the authority having 7.8 million to invest. Paragraphs 3.5 and 3.6 detail those investments, which, as Kelly has said, include reducing the proposed council tax increase, increasing the pay provision, being mindful of the narrative in the settlement, funding for the real living wage, workforce and transformation, fostering inflation for care home providers, and a resource for COVID recovery and hardship, again having one eye on the sentiments in the settlement around no hardship fund. The final budget is then summarised in 3.7. There are then a few paragraphs on the scrutiny recommendations. Scrutiny was supportive of the proposals, including the investments, with their only recommendation being that they would like a role in any criteria established for COVID recovery and hardship. The budget, in terms of what it funds, is then summarised in 3.11. Annex 2 then outlines the movements between years. The next part of the report then goes on to our medium-term financial plan, in summary, with a fuller detail within the appendix. I've already commented that planning has been assisted this year because of the forward indications that accompanied the settlement. The other assumptions made are articulated, and we believe them to be prudent and realistic assumptions and not worst case. It really doesn't help planning if we merely just assume the worst. The revised medium-term financial plan is a financial challenge of circa 16.2 million to be addressed over the 4 years. Section 5 of the report then details some risks that we always need to be mindful of. It will be important that we have an eye on these risks and the general uncertainty, particularly when we close down our accounts for 2021-22. I then go on to our reserves and reserves policy. We have never enjoyed high levels of reserves as an authority, and in the past they have come under pressure to address in-year demand and service change. We've always resisted using reserves to any significant level to underpin recurring spend. The figures within the report are based on the current performance and monitoring. However, there is the likelihood of further significant Welsh Government financial support in the current year, 21-22, and a positive overall revenue outturn that will be factored in. So the reserve levels will increase due to this extra support and the likely outturn. The opportunity will then be taken at the year end to improve our financial standing as appropriate, mitigate risks, and provide policy resource as required. The last part of the report is capital. It outlines the resources available for investment, including the extra £1 million for highways that's been referred to. Going back to the covering report, paragraph 4 of that report takes members through the council tax information based upon an increase of 1.95%, which the executive members commented upon. Our banding now stands at £1,449.18. We obviously need to remember, added to that then, is the Community Council's precept and the police precept. In an earlier part of that report, paragraph 3.2, I detail my professional responsibility in terms of reporting on the adequacy of the budget, adequacy of reserves and contingency plans. The report and papers discharge that, and I have already commented upon the level of reserves and that I expect them to rise further. Nevertheless, we must still deliver on the 22-23 budget. As I reported last year, Audit Wales are continuing to look at the financial sustainability of all councils in Wales, and I anticipate will continue to publish both national and local reports. The recommendations then start on page 46 and are in 4 parts: approve the budget, the statutory recommendations in relation to the budget requirement of council tax, updates on the supporting plans, and the capital strategy and prudential indicators. As is the case when the budget concludes, I'd like to put on record some thanks. Firstly, to Dave Lilly and his colleagues. I haven't sat as close to Dave as I have in 2 years now, and his colleagues, without whose support and professionalism the council wouldn't have a budget to consider. 2022-23 has been another real challenge with all the additional financial requirements brought about by the pandemic, and our financial services team have been at the forefront in ensuring we meet those challenges. Richard Davis and Deb Smith don't normally mention revs and bends in relation to the budget, and although they're not directly related, they have been to the fore financially in administering significant welfare and business grant schemes as a result of the pandemic this year, which do have an impact in terms of our financial accounting and financial monitoring. My colleague chief officers and their teams for their support in once again developing the budget. Their support is very much appreciated. Collective responsibility and discipline remains a real strength of this organisation. And if I may just say a thank you to Keith. I hope he's on the call. This is the last budget we will work on together as he retires at the end of the month. And Keith has always been very corporate in his approach, which I've always valued as the Treasurer. And finally, Tom Roberts and his colleagues in respect of the overview and scrutiny of the budget, which I think again has improved this year despite the challenging times we worked in. Thank you, Presiding Member. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Nigel. I have someone in the chamber, Chris.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I have Councillors Alan Slade and then David Thomas. Thank you.
Councillor Alan Slade, please.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Whilst the narrative of the budget paints a sort of rosy picture, the numbers not so much. Overall, the gross expenditure is lower this year than last, and I've noticed that the income, including specific grants, is down some £22.7 million, which is over 20%. How much of this is down to the withdrawal of the COVID support, and how much is not? Thank you.
Nigel, can you answer that question, please?
Yeah, I think Dave Lill's going to answer now. We've got that information.
Thank you.
Hi, Councillor Slade. Yes, there is an element of COVID grant drop-off in there. So as you recall, Council approved £1.2 million worth of reserve usage to support the COVID recovery. So that's dropping out. So £1.2 million from our own resources. Also from Welsh Government, there's £2 million that was used in 21-22 to support the social care recovery, 2.1 million. There was £528,000 worth of budgeted hardship funding, £732,000 of housing hardship funding, and that's the total. Oh, so yes, that's right. That's correct.
Thank you for that. I didn't have time to sort of do a quick calculation, but that seems to be less than half of the reduction of £22.7 million. What was the total of those, if you don't mind me asking?
And this one off, there's the contact tracing team,
of course,
of £2.4 million. So of that, the total of that is, bear with me, £7 million.
So overall, then the budget has taken quite a hit. I mean, it's more than £10 million
no,
less than we had last year in grants and income.
There are certain schemes in there which has dropped out. So, as you recall, Tova and Training ceased trading during the year, so that is a change. And that is £3.6 million worth of funding. We had a grant from Welsh Government for school maintenance grant, so that's a one-off grant. So again, that was £1.3 million has dropped off. The Community Renewal Fund, that has yet to be announced. That is £2.6 million. We've yet to receive notification of the concessionary phase allocation from Welsh Government. We anticipate it coming through, but as yet that hasn't been included in, and that was £600,000 for 21-22. And also there's some funding regarding the GovTech project that's ongoing, social care, which is circa £900,000 as well.
So just to finish, are the anticipated amounts that we might get included in the figure in the budget? No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Councillor Dave Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Back in January 2020, I did some work on the solar farm that was due to be built in Llantarnam. So I'd like to ask a couple of questions relating to that in this agenda item 9. It's on page 59. If you look at Appendix 1, paragraph 7.1, the quote, "The removal of the solar farm pending further cost-benefit analysis." So I'd just like to ask, firstly, who made this decision? Secondly, what are the reasons to stop the development? And also, I'm obviously acutely aware that the current executive member for the environment isn't the same executive member from the full council meeting in January 2020, but would the current executive member for the environment like to apologise on behalf of that member and to all council members, including myself, who expressed severe reservations regarding the original cost-benefit analysis that was used to justify this project in council in January 2020.
Sorry, Councillor Thomas, what was your question? I didn't quite...
Well, there was two questions. I'm happy to read them out again. The first was, who made the decision? I think these are very valid questions, because if we remember back to January 2020, I was kind of made a bit of a fool for the questions I was asking regarding the costs.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. The first question, who made the decision? Can we answer that, please?
Rose, I think it might be helpful if we brought Rachel in you should give a wider explanation.
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Owen. Rachel, can you answer our questions, please?
The first question, Councillor Thomas, is who made the decision. Now, I'm looking at paragraph 4.1.6 on page 130 of the report, where it says the development of the solar farm has been removed from the strategy until costs can be removed. I can advise that the executive member signed off a report last summer, which gave approval for the appointment of a preferred bidder, as that bid had given assurance that the economic model as received by scrutiny and cabinet had been met, and we could therefore proceed with appointment. During contract negotiations before final signing of the contract, further changes were requested by the bidder. We are still in those stages of reviewing that. A report is due to come before myself and the executive member very shortly on the future of the solar scheme proposal. So that's why that says until further costs can be confirmed, because we're still in a process of review. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you catch Councillor Thomas's second question?
I didn't, sorry, Madam Presiding Member, so I'd appreciate if Councillor Thomas could repeat that again for me.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas, please.
Thanks, Madam Presiding Member. There's no need for that because Rachel's just answered that for me, so that's fine.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments on the budget? I'd like to express my thanks to the Scrutiny Chair, Councillor Stewart Ashley, because we have had a number of scrutiny meetings on this, and it certainly helped carry this budget proposal through. I see a hand up in the chamber.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I have the leader and Councillor Alan Slade.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Leader.
Thanks, Presiding Member. I just want to make a few points about specifics in the budget, and then a couple of general points as well that I think it'd be remiss of me not to make. Firstly, I'd like to draw members' attention to the uplift mentioned in the report on schools' budgets of 5.3%. It's the kind of thing that can be glossed over a little bit, but I think it's vital to help schools recover and to continue their improvement journey. And I think it beholds well on this council that we're not taking the easy option there. We're continuing to invest in those schools. They've got a lot of work to do to help young people catch up after the issues caused by the pandemic, and I think good staffing levels, including support staff in our schools, are an important part of that, and I'm sure I know Councillor Clark would join me in saying that. Secondly, the living wage expansion is something that I know Councillor Daniels and others have been arguing for a long time. It has to be the start, I think, of a repositioning of our view of social care. And the value of care workers in our society. I don't think the living wage is enough. I think they deserve to be paid more. You've got a situation at the moment where care agencies are losing members of staff to areas like retail. Obviously, retail workers are very important, but of course, care workers look after some of the most vulnerable people in our communities. So I think this is a welcome extra step, as are the extra pressures that have been allowed within the budget for social care providers. I think, again, those are things that can sort of disappear between the lines of a budget report, but they have real-world implications. So I'd just like to welcome that. Thirdly, I'd like to not apologise, but I know I continually give officers an ear bashing about highways, so I very much welcome the extra £1 million that's in the budget for those. I think that will help us make a real difference to try and improve some of the conditions of some of the highways. This is a problem right across the UK, not just in Torvine. And as someone who rides my push bike around various roads, you know, the state of our roads across the UK is something that really needs addressing. So I'm glad that we've put some money into that. But I can't promise to stop nagging, because I would break that promise. Fourthly, I think the money for COVID recovery, I think, is vital. I'll draw your attention, members, to some of the announcements that have already been made around inclusive play and the outdoor environment. I think COVID has shown the value of our local outdoor environment to be so vital to people's wider well-being and people's physical fitness too. And I think we need to build on that as we take the COVID recovery plan forward, so that we can make the most of our wonderful outdoors, places like the canal, our parks, our other great areas that people can get outside and enjoy the natural environment. Also, facilities for young people to play sport is something very close to my heart too. So I look forward to looking into that sort of thing as part of the COVID Recovery Fund. Just one last specific point before I move on to a couple of generalities. I just want to welcome the approach that Kelly outlined to council tax. I think it's right that we keep that as low as we can this year in respect of the cost of living pressures that people are facing. I think it's right that we continue to invest in things like the council tax reduction scheme, in things like our discretionary housing payments that have done so much to help people in need, and that I think do give us a good reputation across Wales for the help we give people in need. I think it would be wrong to do anything knee-jerk this year, but I welcome the fact that our council tax rate of 1.95% will be 3% below some councils elsewhere in the UK who are raising their council tax by nearly 5%. I think that will be welcomed by residents, and it shows that we are doing what we can to keep council tax as low as possible, whilst not pulling the rug from under local services, and also, frankly, without doing something this year that would necessitate a steeper rise next year, which would just be a gimmick, I think, personally. So I very much welcome the approach that Kelly's outlined. A couple of general things I wanted to say. I really have hope in setting the budget this year that we're finally seeing the end of the storms of austerity and the pandemic. I think we've got a real chance now, if we look to the long term, to build better services, to improve outcomes, to help our communities recover, and to help Torfaen become a better place to live in. I think if we take long-term decisions, we've really got the opportunity to build on that in the coming years. That's the benefit of the positive Welsh Government settlement, as I see it. It's not a settlement that means things are easy. As Nigel said, there's a huge number of pressures, a huge number of things that, if we're prudent, we need to take into account as we move forward. There's a huge amount of demand on services, and some unknown demand, I think, still that will likely have been caused by the pandemic. But I really believe that the approach that Welsh Government have taken shows that they really do value us as partners in delivering local services. It shows a continuation of the partnership approach that I think has held us in good stead over the last 2 years. So I'd just like to close by thanking Kelly and officers for their calm and prudent approach to setting the budget. It certainly has been welcomed. I also want to thank scrutiny members for the way that they've engaged as well. We always look to try and build on that process each year. But I think the way that scrutiny members engage in that, thank you especially to Councillor Ashley for chairing those sessions, and the way that Dave and Nigel and both Daves, in fact, have been open to members' questions as part of this process. I know I've harangued them with lots of questions myself, so thank you to them for taking the time to explain things in a way that is both professional but also understandable, which I think is important.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Alan Slade.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. My question refers to children's services placements, page 40, paragraph 3.3. This year's budget seems to be accommodating 487 placements, and that seems to require an additional investment of £360,000. However, last year's budget made an accommodation for 535 financial placements. And my question, I mean, I'm sure there's a simple answer that I'm not seeing, but my question is, why is there an additional investment of £360,000 required for 48 fewer placements?
Who's going to answer that one?
I am presiding officer, David Weaver.
Thank you.
It's primarily the categorisation and the mix of the types of placements. So in the 21-22 budget, the number of the 500 issue you quoted, Councillor Slade, included a higher proportion of what we call lower cost placements, such as our own foster carers and kinship and that sort of thing, whereas those have reduced during this current financial year, which has made the mix of the number of placements in totality has come down, but obviously average cost per placement then has actually increased.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive answer. I thought it'd be quite straightforward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Understood, Ashley.
I must admit I was lost for words having mentioned both the presiding officer and the leader. I don't get lost for words very often, but this year's process has shown the value of good scrutiny, which you will see in the next section as our Bayern report was coming up next. But this budget process, we had a pre-budget and we had this. And it's shown the value because some people said on the pre-budget, what are we doing here? And then we had the settlement, and it's shown the value. We were certainly astounded when we had this extra money coming. I'm sure the leaders just said that as well. So the fact that the main thing that's come out of it is the COVID story and the dialogue. And I take Nigel's point on this because I sit on the audit committee as well, that the explanation you've got here is very valuable. We know what the story is. And I commend this report simply because it's actually illustrating this. And I would also say I will miss Keith as well, because Keith, when you asked him questions about everything, and the last question that was asked about the detail, and sitting people down and actually finding out what our mitigation measures is, the value of scrutiny, and why the what's and errors, and why are we mitigating things. That, for me, is the reason why we sit here. And I've done a good few years of this, and coming back here to this budget and getting, the sign-off is really, really important. So thank you, Keith, and thank you, Nigel and your team, and thank you, Scrooge, because this process is not lightly done, and I'm confident that we're signing it off. With a tremendous amount of work done here. So I commend this. I would like to move it as well too when we get the chance, Rose. If I would, please.
Thank you, Councillor Ashley. Councillor Hugh Bevan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Firstly, I'd like to start by thanking Nigel and his team of officers for producing the budget report. It's very comprehensive. As he says, it seems to grow year on year in terms of size and detail. So first off, many thanks to Nigel and his team for presenting the budget. Listening to commentary from certainly many Labour councillors speaking in the meeting today, they seem to be presenting a very rose-tinted report on this budget this year. I want to pick up on a few points that have been made previously. The expectation is, what's being said was, the expectation was we were going to have a lower settlement, and isn't it surprising now that we've had a better settlement from Welsh Government? Truth is, there's been more money coming down from Westminster to the Welsh Government. The Welsh Government haven't, in fact, although they've given us a better settlement than anticipated, they haven't, in fact, passed all that money down to us in local government in recognition of the work we've done throughout the pandemic. They are, in fact, actually building up their own reserves. With regards to our reserves, we've seen calls upon our reserves to fund projects such as the British to build a big pond up there. And we are looking to increase our reserves this year. If we're looking at the percentage increase in rising council tax this year, that again, we're going out to ask for residents to pay, the leader said, it would be a gimmick if we didn't do anything and it would call on council tax increases last year. If I was to adopt a cynical viewpoint, looking at the levels of increases in council tax that residents have had to pay in previous years, you could say, isn't it a bit of a coincidence that in the year which we're having local government elections, that the council tax request for residents is being lowered? Picking up on the point that he made about highways, yes, it's welcome that we've got an extra £1 million being spent on highways this year. It's long overdue. we've got a backlog in Torfaen of £30 million for essential highways maintenance repairs that hasn't been addressed, certainly during the time that I've been a councillor. Picking up on the point about the living wage, I don't know if long-standing members will recall, but that was actually a motion that I put forward when Bob Wellington was the leader. And the current leader, Anthony, also submitted a motion after he was elected. So, you know, we've been going on about this for a long time. The uplift in schools and social care is always welcome, but for residents who don't benefit from either having social care or by having children in education, then you have to look at the services provision that the council is making to them. And I think, you know, that has deteriorated over the years. We've seen withdrawal of non-statutory services. I welcome a lot of what's in this report, but sadly, I cannot vote in favour of it. I can't support it because, again, we're calling for more money to come from residents in the borough when we're already seeing fuel prices, gas, electricity and food and everything, you know, skyrocketing. Yes, we've got a council tax reduction scheme in place, which is trying to give some protection to the worst affected residents in the borough. But there's not been enough investment in the wards over recent years. So I'm very sorry to say that we cannot support the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Huber, but I don't think there was a question in there, so it's just comments. Anybody wish to react to those comments or answer those comments?
Yeah, I just respond a little bit, Rose. I mean, I'm not going to address them all. There was a lot there. I mean, it's a good job, really. I'm not a cynic, and you know, I'm not going to get into the argument about where the money's come from, because obviously we go back and forth forever and a day on that. I'm just glad that the money has come down to us here in Torfaen, wherever it's come from, and that we can now move forward with a positive budget and a good settlement and try to do more for the people of Torfaen. On the council tax stuff, you know, it is a balance. We've said that before. You've seen the forward settlement indications. It would be, I would suggest, lowering it to 1.95% this next year is not a gimmick. What would have been a gimmick and an electioneering attempt, I would suggest, is cutting the council tax completely this year and splashing that all over the place and then having to raise it again by 3.95 or 4.95 or wherever it might be in years to come. So I think providing a lower council tax over a couple of years is the right thing to do for our residents. It provides certainty and it makes sure it stays low. I agree with you on highways. Highways is an issue, but we can't address it in 1 year. This is a start, I hope, of what is a longer term look at our highways net, you know, highways and what we can do there. And on the cost of living, yeah, it's an absolute nightmare. It's affecting everybody. And to be honest, going forward for the new council, that's probably going to be at the top of the agenda and the biggest thing that people are going to have to grapple with. So, you know, those are the comments I'll make, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Preston. Councillor Giles Davis.
Thanks, Madam Presiding Member. Yeah, I remember you just pricked up. I heard a comment about the big pond on the British, just to make everybody aware that the British project is a little bit more than a big pond on the British. It's making the area safe after 30 odd years of campaigning, number of deaths on the site, and bringing this former destroyed industrial area back into safe usage for the members of Torfaen to go, for residents in Torfaen. So it's a little bit more than spending money on just a big pond. I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giles Davis. Is there any other questions? I can't see any hands raised. No. So the recommendations, I'm not intending to read them out. They're a huge couple of pages there. They're on page 46 to 49 of the report. And I'll ask members, do you agree with the recommendations, please?
I've moved it already, hadn't I?
Can I second that,
Thank you. Are there any members against the recommendations? Can you call your names out so we can record them, please? I can see two screens 3 screens. Shall we take them? Councillor Jason O'Connell, I can see your hand up.
Yep, against, please, Chair.
Madam Presiding Member, just for this point of order, please, would it be easier if we went through the councillors in alphabetical order to ask if they were for, against or abstaining?
Are you asking? Chris, can you advise on whether you can see all the hands or not?
Madam Presiding Member, that would be a recorded vote. If members wanted to put their hands up in the council chamber and perhaps put their hands up on the on Teams, then I can record them that way.
That's a good idea. So those members against, if you could raise your hand icon.
Oh, hold on.
I think there's been a call for a recorded vote.
I'll second that.
I haven't heard a call for a recorded vote. I asked for. I did hear that they go through alphabetical order.
Chris actually said it before you said.
Councillor David Thomas has asked for a recorded vote, so if we could get members to agree that.
Right. I'm assuming that the people with their raised hand icons would agree with Councillor David Thomas. Anybody not? Okay, you can take your hand icons down. We'll do a recorded vote.
Just to clarify, Presiding Member, I know we need six members. So if we could just have that confirmation, there are 6 members who wish a recorded vote, and then we can proceed.
Yeah. Do you want to? Chris?
I've recorded that, Madam Presiding Member, so that's fine. I think we'll go to the recorded vote now, if that's okay.
Thank you very much. Proceed to the recorded vote, please.
Thank you. Councillor Ashley?
I'm for the budget.
Councillor Bevan?
Against.
Councillor Burnett? He's not in the meeting. Councillor Karen?
For.
Councillor Clark? Richard Clark, sorry.
For.
Councillor Clarkson?
For.
Councillor Constance?
For.
Councillor Crick?
For.
Councillor Cross?
For.
Councillor Daniels?
For.
Councillor Charles Davis?
For.
Councillor Cathy Evans?
For.
Councillor Stephen Evans?
For.
Councillor Stuart Evans?
For.
Councillor Joanne Gordon?
For.
Councillor Haynes?
Against.
Councillor Horler?
For.
Councillor Hunt? For. Councillor Gaynor James?
For.
Councillor Keith James?
Against.
Councillor Gwyn Jenkins?
Against.
Councillor Faye Jones?
Sorry, Chris, we didn't hear that one.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Faye Jones?
For.
Councillor Janet Jones?
Against.
Councillor Nicholas Jones?
Against.
Councillor Peter Jones?
For.
Councillor Kemp?
For.
Councillor Killick?
For.
Councillor Malson?
For.
Councillor O'Connell?
Against.
Councillor Overton?
Against.
Councillor Owen?
For.
Councillor Parish?
For.
Councillor Powell?
For.
Councillor Kelly Preston?
For.
Councillor Rapier?
For.
Councillor Seaborn?
For.
Councillor Shepherd?
Against.
Councillor Alan Slade?
Against.
Councillor Chris Tew?
Against.
Councillor Colette Thomas?
For.
Councillor David Thomas? Against? Councillor David Yole.
For.
Thank you. That's 31 members for and 10 against.
Thank you very much, Chris. The recommendation. So we'll accept that vote. I'm sorry, I'm reading through my papers and turning over. That vote is carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Before we go on to the next agenda item, Keith Rutherford was mentioned in the chat just now, and I'd like to express my deepest thanks to Keith. He will be retiring at the end of the month, and I'm sure we would have loved another opportunity to say goodbye to Keith, and we may well have, but I'd certainly like to give my my deepest thanks to Keith for his advice and his guidance over the years, and we wish him all the best. Janet Jones, do you want to speak?
Chair, if I may, on behalf of the Independent Group, will you pass on to Keith Rutherford our grateful thanks for his support, and we hope that he has a really healthy and happy retirement.
Thank you, Councillor Janet Jones. I'm sure all the council wish the same. So that'll take us to agenda item number 11 now, which is the biennial scrutiny report 2020 to 2022 on page 225. Loads of twos there.
Chair, was there item 10?
Yeah, I've scribbled all over it with a recorded vote. Thank you very much, Stuart. Agenda item 10, Torfaen Council Strategic Equality Plan, Annual Report 2020-2021. On page 191, thank you, Stuart, for that reminder. Sarah Tiplin, Policy Partnerships and Equalities Manager. Could you deliver your report, please?
Good morning, everyone. So today's report covers the progress made towards the 5 objectives of the Strategic Equality Plan, and the reporting period of the report is the 1st of April 2020 until the 31st of March 2021. There was a huge amount of positive activity considering that the report covers the first 12 months of the pandemic, and some examples of the work completed during this time are the embedding of the socio-economic duty, anti-bullying guidance for schools being updated to reflect the most recent policy, the Challenge Fund creating socio-economic opportunities for residents, and a virtual disability forum was established. There's lots more in the report, but they were just a few points to highlight. I'd like to thank all of the officers that were responsible for these areas of work and those who provided updates for today's report. Although I'm the one here today presenting, the report is very much a reflection of their hard work and their commitment to the authority's equalities agenda. We're asking today for the report to be agreed so that we can formally publish by the 31st of March. Happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Sarah on this report? I don't see any, Sarah, so thank you very much for that report. Recommendations are on page 194. Members, do you agree with the recommendations? Are there any members against the recommendations? Are there any members who would like to abstain? No, thank you very much, Sarah. That report is carried. Thank you, members. That takes us now to agenda item 11, which is the biennial scrutiny report 2020-2022, and that is on page 225 in your agenda. Tom Roberts, Business and Democratic Support Services Manager, could you deliver this report, please, for us?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member, and good morning, members. I'm going to provide a brief introduction to the report, but I'm conscious that this is not my report, but belongs to the Chairs of Scrutiny. The report provides an overview of the work undertaken by our scrutiny committees over the last 2 years. Indeed, because the report covers the period of the pandemic, much of its content focuses on how we have reacted to new ways of working to ensure scrutiny remained effective throughout the period of the pandemic. It would be difficult to believe if I had been told in March 2020 we would have been able to undertake democracy, including scrutiny through electronic means, in such a short period of time. Everybody involved in making that happen should be congratulated, including elected members who have had to be patient and understanding at times as we've looked to get our new systems up and running. I do not intend to go through the report in great detail. However, I believe it is worth noting and pleasing to see that we have largely received positive feedback in moving to remote scrutiny meetings and more recently to hybrid meetings, with positive feedback received on how members feel they have been equipped and supported to undertake scrutiny and the impact that scrutiny has had. Clearly, there is always more that needs to be done, and also, as all members are aware, it is a local election year, and that is likely to lead to us having at least some new members. Therefore, as we look forward to the new municipal year, we intend to focus our efforts on providing a suite of induction and training modules to equip members, both new and returning, to fulfil their role of scrutiny members effectively, provide further training opportunities throughout the year to strengthen members' confidence and questioning skills, conduct an annual member survey specifically on the scrutiny function in Torvine in order to ensure year-on-year improvements to the scrutiny process are being identified and actioned, strengthening public engagement in the scrutiny process by continuing to develop the role of the Council's People's Panel and the Youth Forum in the scrutiny process, and considering what further steps can be taken to support the integration of the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act into the work of scrutiny committees. Finally, before I hand over to any of the chairs or any other members for that matter who may wish to come in, I would like to thank all the chairs, both current and previous, who have worked with, and all the scrutiny members who have contributed so much to all the critical business the Council has undertaken over the last 5 years through the scrutiny process. I would also like to thank executive members, officers and external experts and residents whose efforts and commitments have supported committees to undertake their statutory role over the last 5 years. Before going to the recommendation, I'd like to hand over to any elected members, and particularly the scrutiny chairs, who may wish to come in now.
Thank you very much. Do I have anybody? Councillor Peter Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'm not going to go into great detail of my report because it's covered on page 241. However, there's two things I'd like to record. Obviously, my thanks to the Business and Democratic Support Services. I know that's covered in the report, Tom, but I want it to be on the record. But also, I've chaired the Cleaner Committee for 5 years, and what I'd really like to make the point is that it's been great over those 5 years that we've had a really cross-party approach to scrutiny on this committee, and I'd like to thank all the members over those 5 years who've contributed to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Jones. Councillor Gwyn Jenkins.
Good morning. Yes, I echo Peter's comments there. Do you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the members of my committee. No matter what their who they are, they all contributed. We all got on well together, very constructive. I'd like to also thank all the invitees who came and answered our questions so truthfully. And importantly of all, I'd like to thank Rebecca for what she'd done, because without you, I don't think I would have got through a lot of the meetings. And other than that, I'd like to thank everybody. This could well be my last speech on the council, so thank you all for contributing.
Thank you, Councillor Gwyn Jenkins. Councillor Stuart Ashley.
I'm sort of following in the line on this. That you read my report. It's I love scrutiny. I must admit I've done it a little bit more than that 5 years, and I'm mindful of the fact it's a political process, but not a party political process. And I make that point because I was well taught by Lynn Williams, and I like to remember Lynn while we're at it, because Lynn passed away during this, and I think she brilliantly taught those of us that were here in previous council. And I think that process of remembering the value of scrutiny is the point I'd like to make, because I feel that's why I feel about scrutiny. It's really, really important. And I know that executive members and officers have got respect for the way we do it. And I think Tom and team and all our officers do that well, very well. I don't know how they turn it around, to be honest, because they take our recommendations and put them back out again. And I know that when I'm an ordinary scrutiny member, the way in which they take our results of our scrutiny and put it back out again are absolutely brilliant. And in general, we get good results, and we put it together. Now, I also would like to thank everybody that's done cross-cutting, because we've seen an example of cross-cutting today with Nigel and all the heads of services it's not an easy thing to do, and we get reasonably good. We get very good results out of it. Budget, we've done climate change. I'm unreservedly going to go on about that one, because that was the other big issue, other than and that it's in my report. I'm not going to go on any more about that, but it's that those big issues there are what the cross-cutting one does, and I don't know anybody else, because I remember somebody saying to me about a certain subject, we won't be here long, and we were there. So with scrutiny, we give it our all, and when we come to the new council, I hope the new members that come in will give it their all as well, because scrutiny is really, really important. It's part of the whole council process, whatever persuasion or none that you are. And I commend this report and the staff that do it, because I don't know how they do it half the time. Thank you there.
Thank you, Councillor Ashley. Councillor Richard Overton.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I would also like to commend this report to Council. Personally, the chairmanship of Healthier Community Scrutiny Committee has been a very enjoyable 18 months for myself. We've scrutinised a wide range of topics which coalesce around health, but not necessarily health itself, such as young offending, homelessness, other social problems. I'd like to thank all the officers and members for their participation, and I probably will not be chairing this again, irrespective of what happens in May. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for all the help I've had during the last 18 months.
Thank you, Councillor Overton. I think that just leaves me, and as Chair of Education, I was proud to represent members on the Education Scrutiny Committee. I'd like to express my sincere thanks to Councillor Richard Clark, who's made the process so open and accountable, and all elected members that have participated. But special thanks to the co-opted representatives on the Education Scrutiny Committee. They are statutory reps, and they deserve a special mention. I thank those for attending and contributing to those meetings. And finally, a big special thanks to our scrutiny support officers. Leanne Skellett and Tom have played a huge part, as previous chairs have actually stated. So our grateful thanks to all, and I will also commend this report to Council. I do see a hand. Stuart Evans.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the chairs of the scrutinies that I've been involved in. Over the previous 5 years, I've found that we've worked together. There hasn't been no political drive there. It's been a common goal, and I'd like to thank them for that. I'd also echo your sentiments that's been expressed by all the chairs today about the professionalism of our Democratic Services officers. It's been absolutely brilliant, and I hope it goes forward in that vein for the next municipal year.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. There's someone in the chamber, Chris.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. The leader wants to make a comment, but before we go to the leader, I would just like to offer a correction to the figures for the recorded vote for the last item. It was actually 29 for and 12 against. That will be reflected in the minutes. Okay, so over to the leader, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yes, leader.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I just want to really say, as someone who's the subject of rather than a participant in scrutiny, a thank you to members and to officers for their contribution. I think how we view scrutiny is, is very, very revealing of an attitude of any administration. I'd certainly hope that we'd view it as a constructive process, an ability for you to be, critical friends and to hopefully result in better policy directions after the subject of your scrutiny. I say that because I think we may have an opportunity in the coming term, whoever's leader I hope takes it forward, where scrutiny can really get involved in some really forward-thinking and optimistic conversations about how we can better invest in and work with our communities going forward as a council. I think scrutiny can have a huge role to play in that. So I look forward to hopefully myself being part of that journey.
Thank you, Leader. I don't see any more hands raised, so I'll take you to the recommendations, which are on page 226. Members, do you agree the recommendations, please? Thank you. Are there any members against the recommendations? Are there any members who wish to abstain? Thank you very much. That's carried. Agenda item 12, changes to committee numbers following the Boundary Commission review. This is a agenda item on page 257. Tom Roberts, Business and Democratic Services Support Services Manager, could you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you again, Madam Presiding Member. As members know, following the recent Boundary Commission review, we will reduce the number of elected members and electoral wards in Torfaen. The report is therefore a pragmatic response, setting out a number of recommendations for reducing the number of elected member seats on various committees. Following the local government elections 2022, the number of elected members reduces from 44 to 40. Electoral wards reduce from 24 to 18. Reducing the number of elected members and electoral wards will have an impact on our ability to fill seats on the Council's committees. The report therefore outlines 4 recommendations as pragmatic solutions that reduce the number of politically balanced seats. The underlying approach to our proposals, when considering them as a whole, has been to attempt to keep the overall number of seats per member as close to the same level as possible. There are currently a total of 100 politically balanced seats, which are available to be shared between the 44 members that average at 2.27 seats per member. There is a suggested reduction of 10 committee seats overall, which equates to a total of 90 politically balanced seats shared between 40 members, giving an average of 2.25 seats per member. As far as the specifics are concerned, the 2 largest committees in terms of member numbers are both regulatory committees, planning and licensing. The planning committee will be particularly affected by the boundary review, not just the reduction of members, but the merging of single member wards to form larger multi-member wards. Current planning regulations only allow for 1 member from each multi-member ward to sit on planning committee. When the council moves to 18 electoral wards, it will make it impossible to fill the planning committee places if the committee remained at 16 members. Therefore, we are proposing to reduce the number of members on planning committee to 12, so that's a reduction of 4, and reduce the number of members on licence committee to 11, which is a reduction of 1. As far as scrutiny committees, a reduction in members for each scrutiny committee from 10 to 9 reduces the overall number of member positions by 4, which minimises the overall impact on scrutiny. As far as the Governance and Audit Committee, the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021 came into effect in January 2021 with a phased approach to introducing various provisions. In May 2022, the membership of the committee will be altered so that 1/3 of the members will be lay members and the chair must be a lay member as well. We will therefore have 3 lay members on the committee. We are therefore proposing to reduce the number of elected members on that committee by a single member, but that will in effect have the impact of increasing the overall members on the committee by 1. That essentially concludes the recommendations within the report, Madam Presiding Member. I'd be happy to take any questions before going on to the recommendations.
Councillor Hugh Bevan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'd like to thank Nancy as well for her telephone call in advance of today's meeting and for disseminating the report so we could pass it on to group members. Obviously, this is something that follows on actions that the Council has to take in response to the Boundary Commission's review. So we have to really adopt it. I don't see that we've got a lot of choice in this matter. Nancy's given me an assurance that we will still continue with having political proportional representation on committees going forward, so there's no changes there in terms of procedures and practices that we've already had. The slight concern I've got is something that's just been mentioned, is I felt that the planning committee in particular, where we're seeing a significant reduction in the number of members, has actually benefited enormously from having a large number of members on that particular committee, and particularly, you know, ward representation, because obviously planning affects the whole of Torfaen, and a lot of members have been able to bring their own individual experiences of living in the ward, and I just think it's a bit unfortunate that we are seeing a reduction, having to see a reduction on the planning committee of those numbers. That said, I don't think there's anything in particular we can do about it. We would just be, in effect, putting greater reliance on the members on that committee going forwards. We are supporting the recommendations. You know, obviously, we have to accept that this has come in as a result of the Boundaries Commission review. So it's a comment, really, rather than a question. But I wanted to put on record the impact it could potentially have on planning. Thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
Thank you, Councillor Hugh Bevan. Councillor Elizabeth Haynes, your hand's just gone up.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just a little point to note in.
You're very echoing, Councillor Haynes. I don't know whether my...
Can't do anything about that, I'm afraid. In point 5, it says that the leaders of all the political parties have been consulted on the content of this report, along with the leadership team, monitoring officer and head of democratic services. I'm very aware that proportional representation on committees is restricted to political groupings or parties, which I assume is the reason the standalone independents have not been consulted on this. But we are now expected to vote on it. So I'd sort of like a bit of clarity on that.
Della Harris, can you clarify Councillor Haynes' query?
I think perhaps Tom or Nancy, I think we're going to come in on that.
Okay.
Point. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom? Nancy?
There we are, sorry, my mic wasn't working. We were asked to consult with the group leaders as is normal practice, which is what we've done. You're able to vote, obviously, on it as a member of the council. These are just pragmatic approach that we've taken to reduce the seats so that we can have our politically balanced committees going forward.
I understand that. Is it sort of come from higher up that the request to only consult with political group leaders? Because for many years, and I think Robert Kemp possibly might be the one that would be able to confirm, because he's been a standalone independent for many years. And I remember, whilst I was head of the independent group, any standalone independents were also consulted on everything that group leaders were, and there seems to have been a change in that here. I'd sort of like an explanation why, because if we're not being consulted on a report, we are still being asked to vote on it, and that doesn't sit comfortably with me.
Presiding Member, if I can just come in, I mean, that is the understand that the practice, there's no actual legal requirement, so to consult the independents prior to this report being submitted. So, as I said, I think my advice is that the officers have acted appropriately in terms of the consultation that's been applied in this case. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Can I ask then that legislation be sent to me?
It's the practice, as I said, it's the practice to do that.
And who determines that practice, Delith?
Well, as I said, that's always been sort of an understanding, as far as I'm concerned, that's been applied.
No, not at all.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Thank you, Gareth. And thank you, Nancy. Any other questions? Sorry?
Madam Presiding Member, we've got Councillor Robert Kemp.
Thank you. Councillor Robert Kemp.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. But basically, it's my understanding in regarding this agenda item, it's got nothing to do with political balance as it is at the moment, if like, because the wards are changing and the members representing Torfaen are coming down, then the places on each of these committees have to come down as well. Where we go from here in regarding, to give you a good example, the planning committee, as in 12 members, if like, it is the next step which would involve the political balance, if like, as such, and where we are at the moment, we're just discussing and have to agree basically, or not to agree, the amended members of each of the committees, knowing that there's going to be boundary changes. In the fact that there's a forthcoming election coming up, at the moment, we don't know if who is going to be making up these committees as such, but in due course, political balance will play a part in it, which obviously I have voiced my opinion over many years, and this might be the opportunity to say that if like from a council point of view, we are not an equitable council because this council has voted against, if you like, total political balance for all members. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. I don't see any further hands up. The recommendations are on page 260. Tom has read the recommendations of 7.1 out, but there's also a second recommendation of 7.2, and that is that the monitoring officer be granted delegated authority in consultation with members' Constitution Working Party to amend the Constitution to reflect the changes outlined in the report. So, members, do you agree with the recommendations? Thank you. Are there any members against the recommendations? Councillor Haynes? Are there any members wishing to abstain? I don't see any hands up. Thank you. That is carried. Takes us to agenda item 13, which is the pay policy statement on page 261. I have a personal and prejudicial interest in relation to this item and will therefore need to leave the meeting. Officers will need to leave the meeting for this item, with the exception of Jason Lewis, who will present the report, Dominic Redman and Chris Slade. I'm now going to hand over to Councillor Peter Jones, the Deputy Presiding Member, to chair this item. Thank you. Chris, will you do the necessary?
I will, Madam Presiding Member. So if members could now, members who have that interest, if they could leave now, that would be great.
Thank you. Chris, can you let me know when they've all left, please?
Of course, no problem. I think we're ready now, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, we're now looking at agenda item 13, pay policy statement. Without further ado, can I call upon Jason Lewis, Head of Strategic HR and Asset Management? Jason, could you deliver your report for us, please?
I can, thank you, Chair. Okay, so the publication of a pay policy statement for public bodies is a requirement that was introduced by the Localism Act in 2011, with the intention of introducing greater transparency surrounding pay, particularly senior pay in the public sector. The pay policy statement must be approved by Council before the 31st of March each year and published on the Council's website. The key arrangements described in the pay policy statement relates to the governance and decision-making arrangements for senior pay, including the role of Council and the Independent Remuneration Panel for Wales in that regard. Also, the relationship between senior and median or average pay. Other information included in the appendices to the statement include the pay scales in operation, increases to which are negotiated at a national level by employer and trade union negotiating bodies. Unfortunately, negotiations for last year's pay increases were protracted and have only just concluded. The negotiations for this year's pay increases have yet to commence. There are no significant changes to this statement, and it is largely the same as the one that was presented to and approved by yourselves last year. The main point that I would draw to your attention to is the ongoing commitment within the statement to align our lowest pay rate with that recommended by the Living Wage Foundation. That is £9.90 per hour, when compared with the national living wage set by government at £9.50 per hour. I'd also like to draw your attention to Section 8 of the statement, which describes the relationship between Chief Executive and Chief Officer pay and our median or average pay rate. Excuse me. As a bit of context, the Hutton Fair Pay Review, which encouraged pay transparency and informed the Localism Act, recommended that top pay in the public sector should not be more than 20 times that of the lowest paid. I'm pleased to report that the Tovine ratios remain amongst the lowest in Wales, largely as a result of our pay restraint. The rate of our pay for our Chief Executive is one of the lowest in Wales and is equivalent to that paid to Chief Officers in some of the larger authorities. I'd therefore like to commend this pay policy statement to Council for approval.
Thank you, Jason. I'm not seeing any hands up. No?
Chair, sorry, Councillor Kelly Preston.
Kelly?
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Member. Thanks, Jason, for the report. I just wanted to say a couple of short things, if I can. I'm pleased, as Jason mentioned, that our commitment to provide a fair wage to our lowest paid staff continues through maintaining our lowest pay rates to those recommended by the Living Wage Foundation, which, as Jason says, is higher than the national minimum wage, and it impacts over 400 of our staff, so it's quite a significant number of staff. I also think it's important to reiterate what Jason said around the median employee wage, a very modest £24,491. Obviously, our management of officer pay has seen the ratio of top pay to median pay drop substantially in recent years, and again, as Jason said, it remains one of the lowest in Wales. This comes on top of the savings made in the cost of senior management in recent years, including the reduction in the number of chief officer posts, which has fallen from 34 in 2012 to 22 this year. So as a council committed to fair pay, I'm sure we all welcome welcome that information and show our commitment to continue paying a fair wage to our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. I think there's another hand up in the chamber.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the leader.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Member. I just want to just reiterate those points by drawing members' attention to paragraph 8.6 and the tables there, which confirm the point that Jason just made, that we're amongst the lowest senior payers in Wales. I think this is necessary to restate this because sometimes on some parts of social media untruths get spread around, and I think it's important that we counter those. You'll see in that first table the Chief Executive pay to median pay ratio has decreased from 6.05 to 5, and that's well below even the recommended maximum rates that are set by the Pay Foundation. You'll see that the Chief Officer to median has fallen from 3.67 in 2016 to 3.1. So that shows that we're amongst the most even payers in the public sector in Wales, and far below rates seen elsewhere in the private and public sectors. Those tables also confirm that the number of officers on chief officer grades have decreased from 34 in 2016 to 28 in 2022. And when you take out shared posts, for example, the SRS, for example, which of course is a post that's held across 5 different public sector organisations, those number of senior officers decreased from 26 to 22 in that same period of time. So that's good news. It also, further up in the report, confirms the senior remuneration of senior officers, and it confirms that 1 to a maximum of 2 officers in our authority are paid over £100,000 annual wage. Again, there's some fanciful figures sometimes banded around by those who want to have a go on social media. I'm glad this report is a chance for us to maintain what is the truth. Another thing that Kelly said, I welcome the recommitment to the living wage and the expansion of that to our care workers. I think we should do the most that we can to help those on lower pay to make sure that they can live a decent life, and also, of course, money that goes to them also goes to local businesses, because they are, by and large, local residents too.
Thank you, Leader. I don't see any other hands up. No, Chris, no more hands up?
Nope.
Okay, members, we'll move to the recommendations. They're on page 263. I'm not going to read them out. Can I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations? Can you put your hands up? Are there any members against the recommendations? And are there any members that would like to abstain? Okay, that's carried. Thank you, Jason. Thank the members that contributed to that item. Chris, can you call Councillor Seaborn back into the meeting now, please?
No problem at all, thank you.
We'll just wait until the presiding officer returns, members.
Thank you, Chris. I'm back in now. Are all other members back in?
We're just calling members back in now, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair, I think we're ready when you are.
Thank you very much. Can I thank Councillor Peter Jones for dealing with that item? The next agenda item is agenda item 14, which is motions on notice. Councillor Gwyn Jenkins, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, can somebody tell me why he was removed from the meeting, please? I don't know anybody that works in the council. I've got no relatives there.
Not sure, Councillor Jenkins. I don't know whether he lost connection or something. I don't know.
No, it said that I was removed from the meeting.
Oh, right. Well, you could have rejoined. Apologies for that. Sorry.
So what have I missed?
You've missed agenda item 13, which members had declarations, and a lot of members left the meeting. Obviously, there was a mistake in removing your name, Gwyn. It was the pay policy statement.
So,
Apologies. Apologies for that. Takes us to agenda item 14, which is the motions on notice. Councillor Colette Thomas, can you move and explain your motion for us, please, as shown on page 289 of the agenda?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Council has declared a climate change and nature emergency, and now could show even more consideration to our wildlife population by protecting our threatened hedgehogs. A small change could make a big difference. I would like the Council to consider the following proposal: that the Council includes hedgehog highways in all Council developments, tunnels to be inserted in solid walls, and fences or hedges to be used as boundaries, making spaces for hedgehogs to roam. The Council encourages all private developers to follow this practice and provide hedgehog highways in all future developments. The hedgehog is listed as a conservation priority under Section 7 Environmental Wales Act 2016 and as a species of principal importance. Public authorities therefore have a duty to seek to maintain and enhance biodiversity while it carries out its functions and to have full regard to the Section 7 listing. I hope members will agree. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Do we have a seconder for that motion, please? That's seconded. Thank you. Do you wish to debate the motion, members? I've got Councillor Stuart Ashley with a hand up. Yes. Councillor Stuart Ashley.
Yeah, I just like to support it. I didn't get in, but seconded. All I would also like to say, I think this is a brilliant motion. It's also on the red list for members that know it for mammals, along with it's very much in danger of extinction if we don't do measures like this. So the red list is a list of mammals and other insects, etc. The hedgehog is one of our mammals, along with the, I've got the list, water vole. Along with the water vole is actually very much in danger. So measures like this, if we don't do this, it's very much in danger of extinction. That word is rather final. And a lot of us, I think, a lot of members on this council I've spoken to actually are taking active measures, and I thank Colette for bringing this because it's absolutely brilliant. We have hedgehog boxes in our house, and it comes down to measures like that on your own individual basis. We've got them front and back. I know other members I've spoken to all got this sort of thing going on, and it's as important as that. You individually can do something about it, and a lot of our schools and other people I know are actually individually doing things. So I commend this. Thank you very much, Colette, for bringing it. But remember that red list is really, really important because that can be down to individual animals. And I mean, it's so much so that if I were back in future, I would be wanting to bring something. But this is a start, and thank you. I say it again. The red list, look at it, look at what Colette's proposing, and please can you support this because it is really, really important.
Thank you, Stuart Ashley. Councillor Veronica Crick.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I'd also like to commend this as a hedgehog lover and keeper, in inverted commas. It was good to see in the last couple of years not so many dead hedgehogs on the road, and I think obviously that's been due to considerably less traffic than there has been. But I would like to hope that in the future people will be more aware of the need to look after our environment and those other animals, we're animals ourselves, that live within it. I would like to ask that the red list is perhaps distributed to members so that everyone has a chance to be aware of it, because it includes animals that including birds, that we're all used to seeing and are suddenly finding are very, very sparse. we were having a chat the other day. People were saying they don't see sparrows, they don't see starlings. The more we can do to encourage these creatures back into our own environments, the better. So I do commend and I do thank Colette for putting this forward to us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Janet Jones?
Chair, fully supportive of this motion. I've had many residents contacting me with concerns about hedgehogs, and I've observed the number of animals that have been killed on some of our major roads. So yes, I fully support this.
Thank you. Councillor Hugh Bevan?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Yeah, I support this as well. Hedgehog populations in Torfaen have declined significantly. They are an endangered species. I've got a couple of questions on this, please, if I may. I wanted to ask Colette why the motion was specifically referencing new developments only, and perhaps either the exec member for the environment or the appropriate officer, if they are in council chamber, as to what measures Torfaen has already undertaken for providing hedgehog tunnels on existing highways and infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Do we have an answer for Councillor Bevan from...
Presiding member, if I can come in there, really.
Oh,
it's
yes.
not usually appropriate for officers to
No,
discuss
not during a motion.
any motions.
My apologies.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you. I'm sure we can get that information to you, Councillor Bevan.
Yes, well, I'll ask for a briefing with officers and find out what the situation is going forward, and I can send that out to all members then once I've had a briefing, if that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Yeah, thank you, Mandy. I think it was in. I think
Can
it was.
Can you go through the chair, please? Thank you. Can I just say that as a hedgehog lover myself, I've got the first year that I've got one hibernating in my garden. So really pleased with that. They've been coming a number of years up through and it's only just a gap in the hedge or a gap in the fence that's needed. And I've also noticed foxes coming into this state, which is, you know, a fair game. Hedgehogs are fair game for foxes. So we really, really need to protect them. Councillor Bevan, did you want to comment?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I think it was important because it was with regards to the wording of the current motion that's on notice that's been submitted by Councillor Thomas as to whether we want to extend the scope of the motion to not just cover new developments, but to cover existing developments as well. Sorry, that's why I was trying to frame the question and see if we could get some further input on what was being done on existing highways to protect the hedgehog. So it was really surrounding whether we could extend the scope of the motion to now that we've declared a biodiversity thing within council to support the climate change emergency, whether we should extend the scope of the motion, whether members would feel minded to support that for existing highway infrastructure.
Okay, I'd like to ask anyone if they want to move an amendment to Councillor Thomas's motion.
Well, I'll move an amendment.
Thank you. We'll need that to be delivered by email, Councillor Bevan, unless it's quite simple that we can all understand it.
Can I come back, Madam Presiding Member?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very simple. It's just on the wording for where it says all future developments, just add and existing.
Are members happy to add and existing as far as we are able? Yeah. Okay, Councillor Veronica Crick, you wanted to come back in?
Yes, if I may, please. Hedgehog highways are referring just to their natural environment route.
Sorry, Councillor Crick, we've lost your microphone.
Sorry about that. It's referring to their natural routes that they use. It's their highway. It's not our highways. In other words, it's not referring to our roads as such. It's just a point of information. I think we perhaps need to get that clarity somewhere within there, so that everyone understands that we're not referring to the man-made highways. No. These are the routes that the hedgehogs themselves try to find a way through, perhaps a solid fence or wire netting, which can be very dangerous actually for them.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Crick. It does actually say hedgehog highways in the motion. I've got somebody in the chamber.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. The leader would like to make a comment.
Leader.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I would just like to caution against that amendment. What we've got in Colette's motion is quite clearly future intentions. If you were to try and, effectively the amendment suggests we should retrofit this to all developments back until when, I'm not sure. But that seems to me like a bit of a blank cheque and a bit of an impossible promise. So as much as I don't want to be a killjoy here, I think that the direction that was outlined of passing this motion and looking both on the point that Stuart Ashley made of other species and also the point of what else we could do to try and protect hedgehogs is a better way forward than amending something that we don't really know what the implications are and what it's going to cost. So I'd unfortunately say I'll be voting against an amendment.
We haven't asked for a seconder for the amendment yet, I'm aware, but Councillor Linda Clarkson wishes to comment.
Yeah, I'm pretty much echoing what Councillor Hunt has said. Hedgehogs have got specific territories. Identifying those territories is a great task in itself, for them being wild and living within our urban environment. I welcome us looking at what we can do for all species going forward in the future, such as putting up swift boxes, martin boxes, which are easier to retrofit because we know where the colonies are more specifically. But for this motion specifically, I'm welcoming the fact that we're looking at making sure that all future developments are hedgehog friendly and have access for hedgehogs to move around in an environment that they may have been using prior to the development. But it's a huge task to actually retrofit. Something that we can aspire to in the future maybe, but I don't think it's possible to attain it within this motion without a huge amount of input of identifying where the species are actually thriving at the moment. So I wouldn't be able to support the amendment, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cathy Evans.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether we could put out some communications to the general public in Torfaen on steps that they can take in their own homes to help hedgehogs and to preserve hedgehogs.
I'm sure we can sort something out there, Mandy.
Point of order, Madam Presiding Member. If you like, we've missed an important part to this. If you like, Hugh's amendment has got to be seconded before we go on to a discussion. And so basically the first thing to do is basically get it seconded, please.
Yes, we were still discussing because Hans came up after Hugh Bevan and I wasn't aware that Hugh Bevan was putting an amendment in. So Stuart Ashley wishes to speak and Giles Davis.
I was keeping off the general point very deliberately because I was supporting Colette on the Pacific, and I didn't want to widen this up because I was quite aware that this could widen up very easily. And I think that's for a future discussion. I think Linda's got the point on that. And I I agree with Linda and Anthony on that, to be quite frank, because there is a bigger issue with the red list, and I support Anthony on that as well, to be quite honest.
Thank you very much. I've got, unless Hugh Bevan wants to take his amendment further and we need a seconder, I've got some others that wishes to speak. Hugh, do you wish to withdraw your amendment, or?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I didn't know whether you wanted to invite other people to speak on it, if others have got their hands up. I mean, no, I don't wish to withdraw the amendment.
Okay.
I hope somebody will second me on this. What I was going to say was, I don't think this is going to have huge financial ramifications for the council. It's not writing a blank cheque. I think you hit the wording on the head, Madam Presiding Member, yourself, when you summed up my amendment. You know, where possible, we've got the best people for this is going to be like the environmentalists and the ecological team. They will know. I'm not talking about putting tunnels under every single road throughout the whole of Torfaen. They will know where the populations of hedgehogs are, and they could use their local knowledge to. I think we're probably talking, you know, a relatively small number. I certainly think, yes, we should adopt this going forwards, and I agree with Councillor Thomas's motion that certainly all new developments should be fitted with it. But I think really, with regards to retrofitting, it can be done by our ecologists and our environmental officers as part of their normal course of business. And I don't see it requiring a huge, significant financial investment. But I mean, that's up for other members whether they choose to support it or not.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Can you repeat your amendment that you wish to put to the motion?
Yeah, sorry. So it was just to extend the wording specifically mentions, as the motion stands at the moment. Excuse me, it's on I think the third paragraph down. The council encourages all local private developers to follow this practice and provide hedgehog highways in all future developments. And I was just going to say, and for Torfaen, to provide it on existing where possible, where practically possible. But it won't be everywhere throughout the borough. That's what I'm trying to say. It'll be our environmental and ecological officers can determine those sites where there is a hedgehog population. So I don't see it imposing hugely significant costs on the council.
Thank you, Councillor Hugh Bevan. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Hugh Bevan's amendment, please? Can you shout out if you're seconding that? I can't hear. No, that fails. So we go back to the motion. Anybody else wishes to speak on this motion? I've got Nicholas Jones, Amanda Owen, and there's somebody in the chamber.
Can I just come in on that? I mean, when it says in all developments, I mean, I think it should be said where needed, because not all developments are going to need it. And on the retrospectively look at the points there, obviously it's going to have to have full ecological surveys, mitigation measures put in place. I mean, if it changed planning status, that would have big impacts as well. So I think, you know, the amendment, I don't think the amendment is appropriate.
No, we didn't have a second, Mandy, so that's the amendment fails anyway. So Councillor Nicholas Jones.
Yes, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I just wanted some clarity with regard to existing practices. We mentioned in this motion hedgehog highways. Do hedgehog highways already exist? Are they identified? If somebody, you know, maybe a developer or a resident closed what is already seen as a hedgehog highways, do we have any powers to, you know, to ask them to open it back up again. It's just really getting an idea of what the current situation is. Because if we've already got powers to reopen existing ones, if we've already identified existing ones, then the motion in my consideration perhaps already goes far enough. But if someone can give me some clarity on that, it would be very helpful.
I don't know that we're able to do that at this moment in time, unless there's somebody in the chamber. No, that we'll have to get that out to you, Councillor Nicholas Jones.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Who else do I have? I don't have any other speakers. Are there anybody in the chamber wishing to speak?
Madam President Member, I think Councillor Thomas would like to come in.
Yes, I was going to give her the right of reply now. Councillor Thomas? Microphone, Councillor Thomas.
I have members feel that they support this motion. I know there has been a lot of work, a lot of planning legislation recently, and I know that our ecologist has been doing a lot of work on this, and I think there is more sort of work on biodiversity to come later in the year. So this is just a start, and I hope that you can accept it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Crick, have you got a legacy hand up?
Sorry about that, Madam Presiding Member. No, it was really to endorse what Councillor Thomas was saying, and to say that I'm certainly aware that in planning in recent months, where it has been developments, the environmental ecologist has actually made the point that it was important to include these tunnels, which are usually just a hole at the bottom of the fence, or making sure that the hedgerow which is being required will have some space between plantings to allow for natural highways to develop, which is what this is all about.
Point of order, Madam Presiding Member, please.
Can I? Yeah, Presiding Member, can I suggest that you proceed to the vote?
Yes, I was about to. Thank you. You're all aware that the motion, the amendment was lost. The motion is in front of you on page 289. All those in favour of the motion, show please. Anyone against? Richard? No. Anyone abstaining? That motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Thank you, members. We now have a motion 2, which is Councillor Anthony Hunt. Can you move and explain your motion for us, please, as shown on page 291 of the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. My motion, I'll read it out. I won't add a lot to it. I propose my motion that the Council endorses the WLGA Fair Campaign Pledge, endorsed by all 22 council leaders of all political varieties. In doing so, this council pays tribute to Sir Stephen Amos MP and regrets that his tragic death comes after the murder of Joe Cox MP and the stabbing of Stephen Timms MP in recent years. This council also expresses concern about the attack on 68-year-old Barnsley councillor Pauline Markham, who was assaulted whilst walking her dog by a man who made remarks about her political work before punching her in the face, knocking her to the ground. This council notes with alarm the reports from MPs such as Dawn Butler and Virginia Crosby, the Conservative member for Innismon, about the appalling abuse and threats they have faced, and notes this abuse is something that affects councillors as well as national politicians and is disproportionately targeted women and other representatives from historically underrepresented groups. We also note with concern the scenes of Keir Starmer being targeted outside Parliament following untrue allegations made against him from the dispatch box. This council believes that all politicians of all levels and all parties, groups or political persuasions should be entitled to go about their work and their lives free of attacks and abuse aimed at them and their families, including on social media. As members, we therefore pledge not to encourage, abuse or act in a way that causes, excuses, encourages or makes it more likely for others to abuse or attack elected representatives for the difficult job that we do, either in our role within the chamber, in our role outside the chamber or on social media. I move.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. I can't see any hands up wishing to debate. Are you happy to debate this? No, that'll take us to the...
Madam Presiding Member? Sorry, Councillor Preston would like to make a comment.
Somebody in. Sorry.
Councillor Preston.
Hi, thanks, Madam Presiding Member. Thanks, Anthony, for bringing this today. It's absolutely right that all politicians, whether that be councillors, MPs, members of the Senedd, of whatever political persuasion, should be able to campaign or go about their work and represent their constituents without fear. Sadly, over a number of years, I've seen more and more abuse, mainly on social media, if I'm honest, attacking politicians of all levels, all parties, all shades, independents, whatever. And I think all of us in this room, whatever party, group or persuasion, are here because we want to give back to our communities. Sometimes we take unpopular decisions, sometimes people don't agree with our politics, sometimes we don't agree with each other's, but that can all be done in a respectful manner. Of course, politicians should be open to challenge and scrutiny, but it's often thought that politicians should have a thicker skin and that some of it comes with the territory. They should ignore it or brush it off, but I really don't think it should be like that. I remember reading a couple of years ago about a female Conservative Party councillor based in Wales and the awful abuse that she had endured while just trying to represent her community, and think to myself at the time I was just newly elected, how brave she was to stand up and share her experiences, but she shouldn't have had to have been in that position. And to read about Pauline Markham assaulted while walking her dog, that's just awful. And then on this morning's news, there was a report of an individual jailed for 9 weeks for sending threatening emails to an MP on the day his colleague was murdered. It's really, really awful, and I think we've all got a part to play. I'm sure many of us from across the chamber would have seen some awful, awful things posted on social media since social media became a popular thing. And to be clear, I'm not talking about anything personally directed at me, but in general around politics and politicians, both nationally and locally. I've certainly seen some things. I've seen threats, name-calling, memes made using people's photos, and some awful graphics used alongside social media posts when decisions have been disagreed with. And for me, this sort of behaviour, this sort of thing, can seek to sort of dehumanise elected representatives and help create that fair game mentality. It's just someone who's a name on the screen and not an actual person with feelings. I did think about referencing some of the things I've seen here today, but I didn't want to give it any airtime, if I'm honest. All in all, social media can be a really useful tool as an elected representative. I know many in this chamber use it really, really well, far better than my capabilities, but it can also be a source of abuse, and I think all politicians at all levels have a responsibility to, as the motion says, pledge not to encourage abuse or act in a way that causes, excuses, encourages or makes it more likely for others to abuse or attack elected representatives. Sorry I've gone on about, but it's something I am really passionate about. I've seen so much of it. We're all individuals. We've all got feelings and emotions, and I like to think for the most part people do the role because they want to give back, and nobody should be fair game for abuse. So I think this is an excellent motion, Anthony, and I fully support its aims. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Preston. Councillor Hugh Bevan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Yes, I certainly support the motion that's being put forward by Councillor Hunt, the leader. People of all political parties and persuasions have died and been attacked, and absolutely endorse the sentiments expressed in the motion. It's a difficult one in terms of how the council deals with posts on social media. When I've spoken to Legal and Monitoring about this in the past, I was told there was little or nothing that the council could do where things were posted on social media attacking elected members of this council. And the other point that has been raised is a general security issue, and I think following the deaths of MPs and attacks on councillors that were covered in the press, it was said that advice was issued by organisations like the WLGA and the LGA for elected members to not attend ward surgeries on their own. David Amess was attacked when he was conducting a ward surgery. Obviously, that's quite difficult for single members in elected members in single member wards. Where you've got multiple member wards, you can have other elected members accompany you for the ward surgery. So I'd like to ask that I fully support his motion and I'll be voting in favour of it. I'd like to ask the leader, though, if outside of this motion, if he can advise elected members or send us all an update on security measures that the council is taking to further protect elected members to ensure we can carry out our roles without this kind of I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Without this kind of intimidation and stuff coming from external sources, and what can Torfaen do to make our roles safer? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Giles Davis.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. As a victim myself in my first term, I use it quite strongly. I was a victim. Things was put on social media, which didn't only affect my safety, but it affected my family's safety. And when you've got the police calling to your door, advising you how to open your mail properly, how to check for explosives in your mail, talking to your 13-year-old daughter at the time to explain to her to take a different route to school every day, and for me to drive a different route of the day because some person, I wouldn't even use the name, puts something on social media accusing you of something which is completely untrue. And I just say it's absolutely horrific. I was advised not to go into public spaces for at least 6 months. I was flagged up on the police system, and it's just not a nice position to be in. And as one of the other members said, there isn't just any backing there for us. The Welsh Government needs to get their act together and start protecting councillors, because at the moment, when I needed help, there was nothing there. I was just told, it's nothing to do with us, you've just got to get on with it. And when I did try and complain, it was, you're an elected representative, just grow thicker skin. Well, I'm sorry, I don't mind people attacking me, but when it drags into your family, and when your daughter tries to protect you on Facebook when she sees something and then they turn on her as well, it's not very nice. And no elected member should be put through that, or their children, or their families. So yeah, I fully support Anthony's or Councillor Hunt's motion today. I just hope that people watching in will just look on social media and think before they write anything on there, because it can have a massive effect on our families. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Giles. Councillor John Killick.
Yes, any type of abuse can escalate. In my previous job before I moved down to Wales, I worked in the borough of Kirklees. One of the wards, or one of the constituencies within that is Batley and Spen, where Jo Cox was the member. And as part of my work, I mean, she was very young then. I did come across her, I think, on 2 occasions. And why anybody would want to do such a thing to such a person is utterly beyond me. So it needs to be stamped out at the lowest possible level. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stuart Ashley.
We're encouraging people to come into public life, do public service. This is disincentive to anybody, whichever party or no party at all. And I just think that this is something that needs to be stamped out. Basically, I've been subject to it. I'm sure most members have, one way or another, whether it be on social media. What are you in this for? It's low level, a lot of it. I've had occasional bit of it where I've had people after me on Facebook because they didn't like a decision that I was involved with on planning. You get that. You can do it for other reasons. It's just horrible. But and it worries your family. It's bound to. Now the thing is, I took reasonable precautions. I had to have conversations, and I got a good sense of humour. But you shouldn't have to put up with this as the usual thing. It's horrible. And you reflect the people that stand at whichever level in the political process. That this is intimidation and shouldn't be tolerated. But it is frightening for anybody. And No, I welcome this motion, and I like the stance that we should be reasonable and look after each other. You know, colleagues across party, and I applaud that, to be quite honest. And I've never realised that. I mean, my mother was a counsellor years ago, and they didn't have that sort of thing then, although there were occasional bits of it. So I applaud this, and I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ashley. There's somebody in the chamber.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Yeah, we've got Councillor Gaynor James.
Councillor James.
Yes, thank you, Presiding Member. I was an example as well myself. 3 months after I was last elected, I had a really sick threat that was delivered to my work premises, to the shop. Absolutely disgusting threat, as Anthony probably recall this. That the former executive member had me straight up into her office, and we discussed it. He went straight to the police. The police were fantastic, but it was really a really sick, threatening thing. But the police dealt with it really well.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Jessica Powell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just wanted to give my support as well. I've written about this topic in the past. I think in particular is worrying, well, it's worrying for everyone, but worrying for women and mothers, because obviously, you know, you're expected to declare, you know, your child to school, places where you're going to be. And you do worry sometimes that if people do, you know, can escalate from social media where, you know, you expect to receive some pushback, but you do worry about the escalation that can happen, and especially when, you know, your address and everything is public domain. So yeah, I just want to say, you know, we need to tackle it at all levels and put a stop to it before it can escalate.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. I'd like to ask if anyone wishes to... Oh, sorry, Sue Malcolm, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Rose. Yes, fully support this motion. And Gaynor, I also recall everything that you went through. We discussed problems that I was having at home and invasion into my privacy, into my home life. I was also advised by the police what to do. So yes, let's all stick to this, please. We're all human beings. Lives have been lost. So let's just respect each other and, you know, just carry on doing your roles without putting it on social media, with everybody being on top, you know, everybody being called names, photos of us being put up. Like last year, photos of us was put up. I try to rise above it, but when it involves my family, then that hurts. So, Anthony and everybody, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Evans.
I agree with everybody and everybody in the comments, and I'd like to propose this, if possible.
Thank you. The motion's been moved and seconded. Anyone wish to make an amendment to that? No. Councillor Hunt, would you wish to use the right of reply?
Yeah, just very quickly, Chair. I'm more than happy to talk, as some members have asked, further outside this about what else we can do. I think it's important, though, that this motion is about us taking a lead as members, not expecting officers to resolve it. I know we can't control everyone and everything, but what we can control is our own behaviour and the standards that they set. And lastly, I'd just like to thank members for their support and their experiences they've been prepared to share today. As a parent myself, I very much recognise the point that Jess makes. You know, I've developed a fairly thick skin, but when your children are brought into things, and, you know, when, you know, things have to happen there where people have to speak to them about their safety and to their school, for example, then that really is beyond the pale. So thank you, members, for your support, and I'd like to formally move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. The motion's been moved. All those in favour, please. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That motion's carried. Thank you very much. That takes us to agenda item 15, members' question times. There are 2 members' questions for today. Councillor Janet Jones.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. With COVID measures being eased, can you please advise what is the process for return to the workplace for all our staff, many of whom have been working from home for almost 2 years? And in the process, are we prepared for any mental health issues that they may face whilst and in returning to the workplace?
Thank you, Janet, for the question. I think you raise an important matter in terms of support for staff. We expect that home working will continue to be a predominant feature of the working pattern for many staff, supplemented by periods in the office for collaborative and face-to-face activity. Our office accommodation needs to change to better support this new blended work style, and we have established a workplace transformation programme to redesign the office space that we occupy, providing more facilities to meet both formally and informally and less space dedicated to computer work. We hope that a continuing reduction in infection rates and the subsequent easing of restrictions will allow staff to feel more confident about attending the office more frequently over the next few months, whilst continuing to work from home if their role permits. A survey of staff about their experiences of home working and their expectations going forward has just concluded, but the early indications from the survey are that the majority of respondents would wish to see home working as a continuing feature of their working pattern. As an employer, we have a duty to protect the welfare of our staff and would not impose a working practice that would have an adverse effect on an employee's well-being. We have provided facilities for staff to work from our offices right throughout the pandemic, where they've been unable to work from home for either a practical or emotional reason, and we will continue to do so. We have also introduced training for both managers and staff on mental health and issue a weekly bulletin that provides advice and guidance on maintaining positive physical and mental health. I hope you're reassured by that answer, Janet, that our staff are supported, and I thank you again for the question.
Thank you, Councillor Preston. Councillor Janet Jones, you have a second question?
Oh, I haven't had a question, but I would want to thank Kelly for this. It's not just I've been talking to people, not just necessarily staff of Torfaen, but a lot of people are apprehensive. You know, they've been away, they haven't mixed with people, and it is a concern. But I am grateful that we're addressing the situation. So thank you for that response, please. My second question, again, is regarding our employees. As we are employers, are we offering any of our staff any financial help as they've had to work from home for almost 2 years? Obviously, their electric and gas bills are probably much higher as a result of having to heat and light their homes for much longer periods than was normal, and who are, as we all, facing an increase in our energy bills.
Thanks again for the question, Janet. We do not provide any financial contribution towards heating and lighting for staff who are working from home. In line with most councils across England and Wales, our position is that it is likely most staff will see some savings through not having to commute to the office each day, and this will typically outweigh any additional energy costs. However, we do provide guidance to staff on how they can obtain tax relief on their energy costs if they're eligible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, do you wish to?
Thank you, Kelly. I was just going to say, are they aware that they may possibly be entitled to a tax refund? I think it's for even only working from home for possibly even 1 day might entitle them to some sort of refund. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Thank you, Councillor Preston. That takes us to agenda item 16, Cabinet Decisions. The Cabinet decisions start on page 293 and are for the Council to note. There were no challenges to any of the decisions. Any comments from members? Members, do you agree with the recommendations? Yes. Any members against? Any abstentions? Thank you. We noted those minutes. Agenda item 17, which is the date and the time of the next meeting. For your information, members, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 24th of May, after the election, at 10 o'clock. This will be for the newly elected council. Councillor Peter Jones is to take the next item. And Della Harris, can I call you in? I have to remove myself from the meeting. I don't intend to come back in afterwards, so can I thank everybody for their attendance at the meeting this morning, and thank you for your participation. Have a good day. I'm leaving now. Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Rose.
Oh, Councillor.
Okay, as Chris, if everyone who's supposed to leave left.
Can I just ask you, sort of, Councillor Jones, to formally exclude the public and press and agenda item 18 first, and then we can, before we deal with the 19.
Okay. Can we formally exclude the public and press from the meeting, please, as per agenda item 18? Chris, has that been done now?
Chair, I think the council needs to agree that for the exclusion of press and public.
Okay. Can I have hands to see if that's agreed? All in favour? Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? That's carried.